Morning, guys. Welcome back from break, such that it was. I hope that you all are doing well, hanging in there, not too bored, not too stir crazy, um, and that things are going okay. Um, Today, I'm going to talk about a couple things. We have step 4 of the multi-genre project. That's your longer fiction piece. So I'm going to talk about that in just a couple minutes. But I do want to make sure that I mention that there's a new format for the coronavirus journals. I'll be posting daily prompts for those Monday through Thursday. So you'll need to be responding to those prompts. And then on Friday, you'll choose whichever one of those you like most and do a Flipgrid response for those. So the detailed instructions are on the portal, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned that here. Also, we will be having Zoom classes tomorrow. I want to get together and discuss kind of where we're going for the rest of the year with you guys and tell you what my vision is, but also be able to answer any questions that you guys might have. So tomorrow, April 21st, we'll have Zoom classes 10 a.m. for the sophomore honors and 11 a.m. for the juniors. So I'll send out an invitation to you guys tomorrow at those times, but I'd like you to make yourselves available. I understand not everyone will be there, but I want as many of you as possible to join up and join us on those Zoom calls. Okay, as far as the longer fiction piece, I'm going to do what I've done in the past with these for each step, kind of read through the directions and hopefully answer some of the questions that I anticipate you guys might have. So if you don't have that sheet out, pause the video for a second, pull that sheet up so that you can look at that while I'm going through it. So you've completed your research, introduced the reader to your letter. Now you will start to the more creative part of your project. The first genre you're going to write is the longer fiction piece. So this is a short story that should be entertaining, but also needs to illustrate an important aspect of your subject. So again, it's fiction. It's something you've made up, but it should reflect those kind of ideas from your research. The most important things that you guys have found should be part of this story. It needs to also have a message, not just be entertaining. So I want it to be interesting. I want it to be entertaining, but make sure that you have a goal in mind as well. So here are some things to keep in mind. Remember that this is part of a bigger project. So make sure that your story connects directly to the topic of your whole project. You can't just write about anything you wish. It has to connect to the project as a whole. And then make sure you keep in mind, what do you want your reader to understand? What is the message that you're trying to convey? Theme is really important in these short stories. It's all about theme. It's all about the message that you're trying to convey to the reader through this short story. The genre you choose is important. So the list of genres are down at the bottom of this. We'll go through that in a second. But try to choose your genre to fit your message. So for instance, if you're writing about innocence of social media, the influence of social media on innocence, then science fiction would be a natural fit because science fiction deals with technology. Science fiction deals with science. So social media is technology. That would be a natural connection. So you want to try and make sure you make those connections between genre and theme. Certain genres lend themselves better to certain themes. Also, remember your story arc, that you have to have the elements of a story that all stories follow. Exposition, where you explain your characters, your conflict and setting. You introduce all of those things in the exposition: characters, conflict, setting. Rising action, you start to build suspense. The climax, when the main conflict of the story is decided. Falling action, what is the result of that conflict? I mean, of that climax. What is the result of that climax? And then the resolution. Where do your characters end up? How does it all come out in the end? All stories need to follow that arc, so yours should as well. And then remember the building blocks of a good story, of all stories. Characterization. Think about what characters, before you start to write, think about what characters you want to have, what kind of people are going to be involved in this story that will best help you convey your theme. Setting. Where and when is this story going to take place? Again, connected to theme. What is the best place and time for me to convey this message? If you're doing something about war, are you going to tell about a fictional future war, or are you going to talk about um, a real war in history? Do we want to set it in the actual past, or do you want to try and create something in the future? Setting is really important. Um, and then conflict. There should be multiple conflicts in your story: man versus nature, man versus society, man versus self. You want to make sure you involve all those different types of conflict, but you should have one overarching conflict in your story that helps convey your theme. Um, Show, don't tell. This is really, really important. This is fiction. It should be entertaining. You're not going to come right out and tell me your theme. You're going to convey that theme through setting, through characterization, through conflict. Description is key. Detail is key. All those things that you like when you read a story, you want to create those yourselves. And then the genres at the bottom. You can write a comic book or graphic novel. The hard part about that one is that you have to make sure that you can share it digitally. So that probably means creating it on the computer, or if you're actually going to draw it, then I guess you have to be able to scan it and make it look good when you present it in a scanned format. So that's the challenge. If you're going to do that, make sure you have a plan for how you're going to present it. And with a comic book or graphic novel, you still have to do all these other aspects. You still have to have characterization, conflict, setting. You still have to have the story arc. So make sure that you have a plan for all of that. Fantasy story. The key to remember with that is that you're creating a whole new universe. It is a fantasy. It's not something that could exist in the world today as we know it. So you have to make sure you're creating new creatures, new lands, a complete fantasy. Like Harry Potter is fantasy. Okay, there's a whole universe out there for Harry Potter that does not exist in the real world. It could not exist in the real world. Horror story needs to be scary, needs to be violent. So you want to create a character that's probably evil. So you want to keep those things in mind. Historical fiction. There's a couple ways to do historical fiction. You can use actual people from actual history and put them into your story and do a fictionalized version of what they might have said or done. Or you can create new characters and put them into an actual historical event. Satire. Satire needs to be funny. You use exaggeration. You use incongruity, where you put things together that don't necessarily fit together. Saturday Night Live is satire. Family Guy is satire. Simpsons is satire. So you blow things up to make fun of them. Okay, so make sure that you are using exaggeration, reversal, incongruity, or parody. A short play. You can write an actual play, but it needs to look like a play. It needs to have characters speaking to each other, and it needs to have stage direction as well. And then science fiction, where you use technology or science in a new way, and you create some kind of new aspect that doesn't actually exist using science or technology. So when you choose your genre, keep those things in mind. Make sure that it actually fits that category. As always, if you have questions, email me. We can set up a Zoom where we can talk one-on-one. I do have my office hours available for Zoom. That'll be 1:30 to 2:30 every day. Don't forget tomorrow, 10 a.m. sophomores, 11 a.m. juniors will have a Zoom class. And we'll discuss a little bit of what we're doing as we go into the future. Okay, I hope you all are well. Email me if you have any questions.